Real quick, I can show a thought exercise I've been having on getting things from being what we return from a query to actually being in line um, in the response, if anyone's interested in that.
Yeah.
Very interested.
All right, let me share this real quick. And I'm going to do this in a bad way in terms of the demo. But okay, so today when you go in and type something into a prompt bar, um, whatever that prompt is, we end up creating an embedding for that, which is just, again, an array of floats. That array of floats then gets compared to other array of floats to find the most, the closest matches. And then we do a backfill mechanism around that to fill out the context window in the LLM. But we have all this data about, what we got and everything else. But today we're not really sharing that with the LLM itself. But if we do, and you can see a little simple example of this with this prompt here, which prompt itself is kind of bad in terms of how I'm doing this, but it works. But basically we tell the LLM to any claim that you make to make a citation with the source and some identifier, right? Okay, so then when you see an actual example of this of what we send to the LLM, you can see that, the prompt is summarizing 1,024 characters or less, why Bitcoin was created. And then I'm listing these array of sources, but every time I'm actually referencing the actual chunk that I'm actually referencing the actual chunk that we returned in the result. Okay. So then what happens is you can see in the response that claim shows up with the reference, right? And so now we can get back. Now we can actually get back to that source document. So then the next question is okay, I know what chunk was referenced. That has a meaning. And so, by the way, it's interesting too. In this particular case, the response included, it used 3 of the chunks.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it actually did that. But then the next question is, okay, so now the LLM has told me that where it got this stuff from, but now I have to actually be able to then visualize that to a user somehow, which I've made some progress with on how we can do that. But what will end up happening is, when we go through and process a document, today we just create a raw markdown document, okay, which works, and that's good to pass to an LLM. But what we will do is we'll end up actually creating another version of that same markdown document where we put in HTML, using HTML comments, we'll add those markers. So then whenever Andy's little button that says, hey, click here to see this citation and where it came from, it'll go back to here. We'll find that and we'll return that to the user. And then they could also then explore the rest of the document as well. They could scroll up and down around it versus just seeing the chunk itself where it came from today. So
we might have to strip it out, because when the text is streaming into the UI, we won't know that it's an HTML comment for several tokens, and so the user might see some jitter before the comment is removed from the display. We'll have to figure. We might just have to create 2 versions of it or something. Strip it out on the server.
yeah, the thought process was to have this all server side, not actually done on the front end at all. But so anyways, that's it. That's how we can get from, I took a document in, I chunked it up, I stored it, and I searched against it, stuff comes out, and then we can know actually what the LLM's response used, and then we can get it back. So yeah, that's it.
Cool.
It should be. We can take it async, but we could also use some other format instead of HTML comments. But maybe those are safer. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's just go ahead.
Yeah.
Andy, what format are you imagining?
We have sorry, we have a markdown parser, and we can extend it with extra things. And one of the things that you can have is dynamic. I think they're called components or tags, where it's like a sort of mini programming language inside the
Mhm.
markdown where you can insert anything that matches something. So basically, Shelby, we could use one of those parsers to have like a standardized way to have something dynamic in there.
Yeah,
So-
I'm agnostic into how we do that. Like that's
Yeah.
not like a thing that's difficult or whatever. I just chose that
Yeah.
for illustration purposes because Markdown editors, as a rule, don't show HTML comments.
Makes sense.
So this is actually fascinating to me, and I'll just give you the headline about why. Because I think as we move from this world where we're used to like the asset being the atomic unit, and we instead start making the little piece of information or the chunk be the atomic unit, and we start to be able to push that out, we could start to create a taxonomy and a provenance chain around that to be able to get back to the source of truth. And we could even have like a Storytell ID, which is like a unique identifier for every chunk globally. And we could start to take these uploaded assets and to reference the chunks with like some sophisticated metadata that goes beyond just what you had. So like that's chunk number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our system, and we're pushing it to somebody, and we can also vouch for its authenticity, almost like it's an SSL cert. And I think as we get into like more of a trustless society where like information, it's like the intelligence economy, our ability to do things like that could become valuable.
I also think this is a good opportunity. This is a great example of a feature that we might want to limit or gate, not from a cost perspective, but just a value perspective. So, if your point score is whatever, you only get your first 3 answers. If you're a guest user, you only get your first 3 answers with citations, and then you have to register to continue. And, as motivation to get users to take actions that we need them to take.
Yeah.